There we go. Now we're live. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our February edition of What Are You Reading, where we talk with some of our librarians at the Genesee District Library about what we've been reading, what book recommendations we have to make, and things like that. We try and do this once a month and talk about these different books. And we'll go over all those in just a second. Before we do that, I'll just talk really quick and say if you haven't gotten our program guide yet, hey, winter is almost over. It feels like it's over, and it will be over soon. But this has all of our winter programs in it, if you can see it. And our spring program guide will be out soon. And as always, you can find all of our programs and events on our website at thegdl.org. And if you are watching this on Facebook or on YouTube or on our website, you should have a spot to leave a comment. So if you're reading any of these books or if you have any questions or comments about any of these books, let us know so we can respond to them here while we're live, or always respond to them later in the comments as we see them as well. All right. With all of that being said, how are all of you doing here today?
Good.
Fabulous.
Enjoying the sunshine.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, it's pretty nice out. So we can go ahead and get started. Let's see the order they put us here in. Nancy, do you want to talk about our first book for today?
Sure. I apologize. I wasn't here for the January one, so I'm not aware if we have a theme or not. I read heavily because I have been home with asthma a little bit this month, so I just have read so many books. A lot of mine are series, and the new books came out in the spring, so I was thrilled. The first one I want to talk about is The Ninth House. It's the Alex Stern series by Leigh Bardugo. And I'm just going to lump both books that she's got out so far in the series because I read The Ninth House a while ago. But Ninth House and Hellbent just came out January 10th. So I was so excited that the new one came out. And I've been really nerding out. I've been going to YouTube and watching the booktubers. And I've also been watching people shop at Barnes & Noble and seeing what's in their baskets. It's so fun. They do book hauls and you can watch it on YouTube. So I never go to Barnes & Noble because I'm always at the library and I can get my books there. So it's kind of fun. So everyone was talking about this series. It's dark academia. So they're at Yale, and a girl who barely graduated high school and you would not think of as being able to attend Yale can see and hear ghosts. And there is a dark group from Yale who are aware of her and they're tracking her, and an incident happens and they pull her into Yale. They tell her they have connections with the police and they tell her that they will wipe her record clean if she attends Yale and gets involved with one of the 9 houses of magic at Yale. So that's how the story starts. Her name is Alex Stern. And so it covers a lot of issues. She's a freshman in college. She's got to learn how to navigate that. She has powers and gifts and magic that she is not sure what to do with. And they set about teaching her, showing her what she can do. And but of course she's a rebel, so she doesn't color within the lines at Yale. And a lot happens in the first book, and I'm really mad because they ended it on a cliffhanger. So then we had to wait, let's see, October 2020. And then the second one came out January 2023. So we had to wait that long. And now actually her mentor is taken down into one of the circles of hell at the end of the first book. So the second book is all about how they're trying to get him back, and they're learning more and more about what their magic can do and what the world is all about. And it's just so fantastical and so out there. It's just such a good read. But it's dark academia, so it's a very intelligent story and intelligent writing. And I just loved it. So you can read 1 and 2. I'll probably have to wait another 3 years for the third one.
What sort of YouTubers or do you watch and listen to?
I'm such a nerd. I just go on YouTube and I fall down the rabbit hole. And if you read book reviews, because I don't read a lot, like Sherry, you read the rom-coms, anything with the paperback cover with the guy and girl on the front, I avoid those. So I need to know about them to order them. What's good? So watch a lot of that stuff. And it's like a lot of college girls who are just posting what they're reading. They've got pages and followers and sites. And then they do these big, huge book hauls. They're always advertising Book of the Month Club, which I think Colleen Hoover subsidizes. Where you can order your books. And then they do a lot of Amazon shopping and open all their books in front of you. And then they shop at Barnes and Noble. So I just sit at home and watch people buying books. And I like to see what everybody's reading.
Oh, that sounds fun. All right. Thanks, Nancy. Sherry, what do you want to talk about first?
Since it's Valentine's Day and since Nancy mentioned that I like the rom-coms, I have Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. I've talked about Lucy Score books here before. She's one of my favorites. But this one has been out for about a year and I kept putting it off. I don't really know why. I think maybe just the description of the main male character just threw me off. He's grumpy and I enjoy some grumpiness, but he seemed to be uber grumpy. But I decided to pick it up and I was super excited to read it and it was worth the wait. And the second book actually in this series comes out next Tuesday. So this one, Knox is the grumpy, and I mean grumpy, barber. He just wants to be left alone. He lives in a small town called Knockemout, Virginia. Naomi is a runaway bride. She leaves her wedding and shows up to supposedly help her twin, Tina, who she hasn't seen in years. They're kind of opposite personalities, and Tina kind of leads towards the troublemaker, semi-evil side, I would say. So she shows up because Tina says she's in trouble. In the process, after Naomi shows up, Tina ends up stealing Naomi's money and car and leaves her with the preteen niece that Naomi didn't know she had. So she now has this preteen named Waylay, of all things, to take care of. She doesn't know what she's going to do for a job. Knox kind of takes it upon himself to help her out. He finds her a place to live. He sort of kind of gets her a job. He's not super excited at where she's working because it turns out it's a place that he owns and his manager hires her unbeknownst to him. So the townspeople in town all get involved in pushing the two of them together. Knox is kind of estranged from his family. He has a brother who happens to be the chief of police, and they don't really get along until the brother ends up getting shot. So there's a mystery involved. There's romance. It leans towards the spicy side, so if that's not your thing, you're going to want to avoid this one. But it is a lot of fun. It's a really thick book. It's probably about 500 pages, but it reads really fast. So if you want to read something rom-com mystery-like, this is the book for you.
Like you said, you read a lot of these kinds of books. What sort of makes this one stand out? Is it like kind of the blend of rom-com and mystery, or is there another kind of unique hook to it?
They're funny, but there's always some serious issues going on, like obviously Waylay being abandoned by her mother. This one also has a side character who will eventually get her own book, who's a librarian. And you can tell that the author's done some research into librarian. It's not like Sloane is definitely not the shushy bun-wearing glasses librarian that you see a lot of people assume. So it's a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see what she does.
Yeah, I never wear my hair in a bun.
Yeah. I think I have a bun today.
All right. Thank you, Sherry. All right, Kristen, what is your first book for today?
Okay, I'm going to talk about The Watsons Go to Birmingham by Christopher Paul Curtis. So we decided to read this book for our kids book club this month. And I thought it was just such a good book that I really wanted to talk about it. So I'm sure everybody knows, but Christopher Paul Curtis is from Flint. And so the book deals with the Watson family, also from Flint. There's mom, there's dad, there's little sister Joetta, and big brother Byron, who's 13. And Kenny, the main character, calls him an official juvenile delinquent. Because Byron's always getting into trouble. When mom and dad decides it's time for a visit to grandma, who grandma lives in Birmingham, they set out on a trip to Birmingham, Alabama, like a car road trip kind of thing. This book is really fun. It also has some serious moments, but for the most part, it's just really funny. I listened to it mostly on audiobook, and LeVar Burton narrates, so I highly recommend, even if you've already read it before, just give it a listen because it's so funny the way he narrates it. I think that this book is just a really great juvenile fiction book. I've never actually read it before, so I was really happy to finally, get a chance to read it. I love the family dynamic. It's great. The mom and the dad are so funny. The kids are great. They're just like a normal family living in Flint. And because Byron engages in multiple forms of teenage rebellion, they decide to take him down to Birmingham, where Willona, her mother lives, so the grandma. And they like it at first. They don't like it at first because it's so hot compared to Flint, but they really start to get used to it, and they kind of get in a rhythm of like hanging out for the summer. And then near the end of the book, there is a church bombing, which is based on the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing that took place on September 15th, 1963. And the family is scarred from it, especially Kenneth, the main character of the book. And then they return to Flint, and Kenneth kind of goes through some trauma because of what happened. And I think this book does a really good job of talking about the trauma that happened, and also talking about what they do to help him, because throughout the whole book, Byron and Kenneth are constantly at each other, like typical siblings. And Byron really pulls through for Kenneth, and it kind of just shows you what a great family they are, and how they deal with the 1963 America for Black families. So overall, excellent book. I'm so glad I finally read it, and I highly recommend it to everybody if you've never read it, and definitely check out the audiobook because LeVar Burton is a treasure. I think you're muted.
There we go. Thank you, Kristen. Did you only listen to the audiobook? Did you read it at all? Or
I did both.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Did you kind of go back and forth between the two of them?
Yeah, so I listened most of it on audiobook, but then last night I was trying to wrap it up, and I wasn't in the mood to listen to anything, so I just read it. But cool. It is really great on audio. Like I said, LeVar Burton is a treasure, and when I saw that he was narrating it, I was like, okay, I have to listen to this. Yeah, so it's good.
All right, thanks, Kristen. All right, Chris, what is your first book for the day?
Okay, well, first, before I talk about it, I gotta show you my picture of me. Where's the camera? Up close. I'm so terrible. That's me. And Christopher Paul Curtis. Librarians have the best jobs.
Oh, awesome.
Cool.
I got to meet him at ALA in Washington, D.C. Almost 4 years ago now. So.
That's amazing.
So the book that I'm going to talk about is called Having Our Say, The Delaney Sisters, 100 Years by Sarah Delaney and A. Elizabeth Delaney. This book is on my 5-star list. It covers over 200 years of Black history. Sarah is Sadie, and Bessie is Elizabeth. Sadie and Bessie are sisters who lived well past their 100th birthdays. This book was published in 1994, so at this point, it's probably a classic. It covers so many periods of time, and it's told totally from the two sisters' perspectives. Their father was born a slave, and their mother was born free. So over the course of their lives, which was, I think, one of them lived to be 107 and the other one lived to be 104, they witnessed a lot of history. Post-Reconstruction South, Jim Crow laws, the Harlem's Golden Age, and the Civil Rights Movement. What's so wonderful about reading this historical account is that both Sadie and Bessie's voices ring through, making history come alive for you. If you want a snapshot of some really important times in Black history, this is the book for you. In addition, they share words of wisdom. They give you tips and tricks for healthy living. I can't remember which sister it is, but one of them would drink, I think it was a teaspoon of vinegar every day. And she swears by it to healthful living and longevity. And they also give other life advice. So not only is the book this historical perspective, but it also is this real wonderful home feeling of, what their life was like, and what good friends they were to each other. I think they were from a family of 10 children. They're both really down to earth and practical. It's really a really great read, and I highly recommend it.
All right. He said a teaspoon of vinegar a day. Did they both did it?
I think just the one sister.
Just the one. Okay.
Now I'm
Look
really
to be 100. So
yeah, right.
I'm gonna take the note. That sounds really interesting. Who would you recommend this for? Who do you think?
I feel like everybody should read it because it covers so many pieces of history through time. Really kind of, it's not. So I read this back a long time ago in 1994 or 95 when it came out. And I feel like some things have changed in that time period. But anybody who wants just a good overview, I guess is what I'm going for, of some topics in Black history, this is a good book to read. I think everybody should read it. In fact, to answer your question more specifically, if I was a teacher, I would make it assigned reading.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Mm-hmm. Let's go back up to Nancy. All right. What's your next book today, Nancy?
And I wanted to say, too, the apple cider vinegar is coming back around because we all take it with hot water every morning. It's for gut health. So a lot of people do that. Now it's come back around. This book will fit right in with Black History Month. I read Razorblade Tears. It's a standalone by S.A. Cosby. I'd never read any of his works before, but now I'm going to look him up and read everything else. This book is wonderful. It's not something I would normally pick up, but I had seen it everywhere. It was in People, and I ordered it. By the time I ordered it for my library, several of our libraries already had it. I actually did the audiobook, which was really nice. The guy did all the voices really well, did a good job with it. The story starts out, two gay men who are married are brutally murdered in the street. And it's so brutal that they're shot in the face several times. So it's very brutal. And it's assumed that it's a gay hate crime. And there's the African-American man's mother and father are taking care of their daughter. They ended up having a daughter. She's 3 years old. So now the grandparents have to raise this daughter, which is sad, and it's in and of itself, aside from the murder. And then the white father on the other side, the other man's father, He comes from a really bad situation. He's been in prison. He's a drunk. He doesn't even actually attend the funeral. And both of these older men are grappling with the fact that their sons were gay and married, and the fathers showed their disappointment, and they didn't have much to do with the sons as soon as they found out they had come out. And they're grappling with a lot of guilt, a lot of grief, as well as dealing with the fact that it was such a brutal murder. So they kind of get together and start talking to each other, and they decide they're going to solve this crime because the police don't have many leads, and they're kind of just, in fact, they filed the crime as inactive. So these two fathers, and then you find out that the black father actually does have a prison history. He's got a tattoo, and he was in a very rough gang while he was in prison so that they could offer him protection. And these two start to figure out the crime, and they start to go after the people involved. And it's shocking, and it's horrible, and it's good, and it's you're watching these fathers grapple with this subject, which is something that we all consider. And like one of the reviews say, cuts right to the heart of the most important questions of our time. And his writing is so good. It just makes you think of so many different issues. But yeah, this book is so good. And for instance, when the fathers find one of the guys who participated in the murder, the black father has a landscaping company. They take him back to his shop and chop him up and put him in the wood chipper. And it just gets worse from there. So they do find all the people involved. And it's a shocking, horrific story, but kind of reminded me, there was a biker group involved in the murders, and it kind of reminded me of Sons of Anarchy. Just really graphic, but a really good story that makes you question everything. So I'm going to look up the rest of his stuff and read it.
All right. Thank you, Nancy. It sounds like a tough read.
Yes.
All right. Let's go to Sherry. What is your next book?
So my next one is The Turner House by Angela Flournoy. This one was recommended by a friend. She said it was the best book she'd ever read, and it is up there with the best ones I've read. It's about a black family in Detroit during the 2008 recession. So the Turner family consists of 13 siblings, and they're now grown, and they're trying to decide what to do with their childhood home, which is upside down, worth less than the mortgage on it, as was common during the recession of 2008. So the focus is on the oldest sibling and the youngest sibling. The oldest sibling is Cha-Cha. He is always felt responsible for his siblings, and he's currently questioning his marriage and his sanity after he begins having visions. And the youngest, Layla, she's been evicted from her home, and she's secretly squatting in the family home while struggling with a gambling addiction. The rest of the family don't know that she's there. So there's also a storyline telling the story of their parents' migration from Arkansas and living in Detroit during the 1940s, and how hard it was for them to leave home and everything that they had to endure living in Detroit. It talks a bit about redlining. It's a really impressive debut. It's got really strong storytelling. She has a really clear voice, and it's just an ode to families struggling. It's beautifully written. I hope she writes more. I'm definitely grateful for the friend who recommended it to me because it was worth the read.
What would you want to see out of this author's next book if they write another book?
I would hope that the language, she just writes beautifully. I would hope that that continues. Maybe something a little more modern. This was a little more modern when she wrote it, obviously, but maybe something current.
All right. Thank you very much, Sherry. Okay, Kristen, what do you have for us next?
Okay, I'm going to talk about Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This is a book that I found on TikTok. Like Nancy, who's an avid YouTube watcher, I am an avid book talk watcher. I love learning about new books from TikTok. And this one was up there, and everybody that I really like have enjoyed their recommendations so far were recommending this book, and so I had to pick it up. I would describe this book as like a cozy fantasy because it's just such a nice story, and it leaves you with like really like warm feelings and like kind of like a cozy mystery. Like there's not like, it's pretty, like not a lot of like violence or anything like that, but it's just like it just leaves you like feeling good. And that's how this book made me feel. It was like a warm hug. So after a lifetime of bounties and bloodshed, Viv, who is an ogre, or I'm sorry, not an ogre, an orc, she wants to have a fresh start. So she decides that she's going to open the first ever coffee shop in the city of Thune. And through this, she learns a lot about herself, a lot about just like things like a lot of her old friends and a lot of new friends come to the shop. She like makes a lot of decisions and like difficult things to because she's used to being on the battlefield, so this is like a brand new territory for her. And I really like how the author kind of talks about like through this book like the importance of friendship and like found family, love and community, and how it's okay to start something new because you go, kind of growing out of your comfort zone is okay because like some good things might come out of it. And like for Viv, I think she went so far outside of her comfort zone, and then I think it really helped her grow as a person, and well, an orc. But it's just, yeah, I really, really like this book. I think it's hard to talk about other than it's just a fantasy novel about a orc building a coffee shop, and that it is. But like I said, it also has all these like other elements of like friendship and found family and love and community and all that. And yeah, I really recommend it to anybody who likes fantasy, especially those who are okay with like not human beings in the book, and also just anybody that really wants like a nice story. Like it's just, like I said, it's a warm hug. It makes you feel good. Makes you want to get a cup of coffee and sit down and read it.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty fun time just in the cover of it. When I was putting the art together and I saw that, I'm like, this, I hadn't heard of this. It looks like, it looks like a fun read.
Yeah, it was really fun and really fast too. It's not super long, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I was so glad that I picked it up.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. All right, Chris, what is your second book for today?
My second book is going to be Spare by Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex. So this might be one of the most talked about books of 2023 so far. And my book club is actually going to discuss it tomorrow. So I thought it'd be perfect to talk about it a little bit today. So I read this book in about a week. I know several who have listened to the audiobook, giving it rave reviews as it is narrated by Prince Harry himself. So the book opens with Harry's raw emotions regarding the death of his beloved mother, Princess Diana. These emotions carry on throughout the book as Harry buries his grief and actually kind of leads him to some destructive behavior, lots of drugs and partying and what have you that he totally does because he's grieving his mother. He then goes to therapy and learns to accept his emotions, which is kind of unheard of in the royal family. They discourage emotional outbursts. They discourage showing emotion. They really discourage sharing anything about your emotions, at least according to Harry. Some reviews that I read about the book, they take issue with the facts that Harry relays in the books. But my thoughts on that is like any memoir, memories can be embellished and remembered in funny ways. So when you're reading this book, just keep in mind that this is from Harry's perspective and this is what Harry remembers. So it may not be 100% truth, but is anything, you know? I didn't feel that the so-called errors that you can read about in the press detracted from the story at all. So, in fact, I felt that they show Harry to be human, which is what he really desires. Much of the book, he deals with his role as the spare, which is the title, to the heir, which has overshadowed him for the better part of his 38 years. He doesn't shy away from that role. But he also he's also felt like he's been kind of plagued by this role, and that the British press has kind of, forced that down his throat a little bit. Overall, I felt that the book was quick, it was chatty, it was a chatty type read. It gave me what I felt was a good look behind the scenes to the royal family, and I really enjoyed it. And prior to reading this book, I was just kind of a casual royal observer. But now I'd say I'm really on Team Harry,
Like you said, it's like one of the most talked about books, I feel like, in a long time. Everybody's wanted to read it. Do you think it kind of lives up to the hype to you? Was it as enjoyable or interesting as you thought it would be when you finally read it?
So I can't compare it to any other royal book because I've never read one. So I feel like I managed to get our copy of it kind of before the onslaught of the secrets and the lies or the mistruths or whatever. And I didn't go seeking those things until after I had finished it. So I would say, yes, it did live up to the hype for me because I didn't have any spoilers going into it, if that makes sense.
Sure. All right. Thanks, Chris. All right. Let's go start our last round of books here. Nancy, what's the last book you want to talk about with us?
I read another series. There were 2 books, so I'm still plugging along with a new series. It's called the Atlas series. Again, on YouTube, it's all over the place. You must read this. You must read this. So it's Dark Academia again. And I just want to read a quick little blurb of what it's about, a synopsis. The Alexandrian Society, caretakers of lost knowledge from the greatest civilizations of antiquity, are the foremost secret society of magical academicians in the world. Those who earn a place among the Alexandrians will secure a life of wealth, power, and prestige beyond their wildest dreams. And each decade, only the 6 most uniquely talented magicians are selected to be considered for initiation. So it starts out that you're made aware of the society and you're made aware of the fact that magic is real in this world that she's created. And they're choosing 6 of the most prestigious magicians at this point. They've sought these people out. They're young people. They're up and comers. Some of them are graduating. I think a couple of them are graduating Harvard. So they'd probably have good lives anyway moving forward, but they're sought out to become part of the society, and then their future is absolutely guaranteed. So there's no reason for any of these 6 to say no, so they don't. So they go to this mansion, and they're cosseted in this mansion for 1 year, and at the end of that year, they'll be offered the world on a silver platter. But of course, when they get there and start putting their magic together and solving problems, they realize that the house and the society isn't quite what it pretends to be. Atlas is the caretaker of the 6. He's a man. He's also a magician. And he becomes suspect. And of course, they're in this mansion. They're not going anywhere outside in society. So they kind of have to figure this stuff out amongst themselves. And also they have groups of people who they don't understand who they are or who these groups are that are attacking them from within the mansion also and trying to eliminate them at that point. So there's a lot going on. It's really smart. It's really dark. And then the second book, of course, it ended on a cliffhanger. One of the 6 was taken. Well, they're told at near the end of the story that in order to proceed, 5 of them must choose the 6th to be murdered. They must eliminate one of the 6, and they must do it. So they're shocked, and they don't think they're going to participate, and they're talking about that and talking about the pros and cons. And then one of the 6 is pulled into an alternate dimension. So that's where the first book stops. So you really don't know anything, and you're more intrigued. And then the Atlas Paradox just came out, and it's the second book. And we find out more about where she went and who's chasing them, what Atlas is trying to accomplish, and what it's all about. So, and I know there'll definitely have to be a third book, if not more books. But it's really a deep story. It's a good story. I was kind of afraid it was just going to be too intellectual and boring, but it really wasn't. It was fascinating, and I just burned right through both of them. So if you're looking for a new good series, the first 2 are already there for you.
Do you feel like it's kind of a different experience to read the 2 books back to back as opposed to waiting,
Definitely.
essentially years between the sequels like you did, the other books you talked about?
Definitely. I didn't go back and read them, but I went back and read some synopsis I got on Goodreads, and I read some comments because I read so many books. So yeah, to go back to the first book and understand who the protagonist was, I did have to go back and do a little bit of digging for that before I started the second book.
Well, cool. Thank you very much for sharing, Nancy. All right, Sherry, what do we have? What's your last book for the day?
My last book is Haley Aldridge is Still Here by Alyssa Sloan. It comes out today. Haley Aldridge is a former child star. She started in commercials, and then she was one of the stars of a long-running TV show, and from there she appeared in movies as well. So after she has a major meltdown in front of the cameras, which is precipitated by the tough nature of the business, think exploitation, drugs, alcohol, money, and no limits, she's placed in a conservatorship by her parents, who she has supported since she began acting. Her mom moved with her to Los Angeles, and her dad stayed behind. But then once she started making money, her dad quit his job and moved her and her sister, who is also an actress, though not on the scale of Haley, to Los Angeles as well. So after several years, Haley's eager to end the conservatorship, but without control of any of her money and without even a cell phone, she's unable to do anything. She has 2 teenage daughters, and they have visitation with her. They live with their father, who was also a teenage star. Haley met him on a movie set. So after finding out from her daughters that the hashtag Help Haley is trending, she tells her story to her teen daughters and convinces them to help her. So most of the book is her telling her story to the daughters. So this book is clearly based on Britney Spears, and it could have come off as exploitative, but the author she's masterfully written a book that takes a really hard look at how we treat celebrities, particularly young women celebrities, and how the systems set in place and the adults tasked with protecting them fail. The author had a previous book, I think it was called The Unraveling of Cassidy Holmes, that's kind of on the same subject, but it was basically about the falling apart of a teenage girl group, kind of like the Spice Girls, which was good, but I think Haley Aldridge is better. It's kind of dark. There's a lot of things that happen to Haley behind the scenes that are just hard to read about, but it's so timely with everything that's happened with Britney Spears and some of the other young celebrities, and it's just really good book.
What do you think is the part that stood out to you most about the book?
The part that stood out to me is that the people who were supposed to be taking care of her did not in any way and kind of helped exploit her even more. And even when she thought she was going to get out by marrying her daughter's father, that kind of fell apart as well.
All right. Thank you for sharing, Sherry. And we'll move on to Kristen. Kristen, what are you reading book you want to talk about?
Okay. So I'm going to talk about All the Living and the Dead by Haley Campbell. So this is a nonfiction book, and it is about the exploration of the death industry and the people who work in it. And I would, if you like Caitlin Doty, who has written a lot about also the death industry, I would recommend this book to you as well. So this one talks about how Haley, who is a journalist, she has been fueled, she has basically a childhood fascination with death. And through this book, she looks for answers in the people who make a living by working with the dead. So she talks to fatality investigators, embalmers, a former executioner who is responsible for ending 62 lives. She meets gravediggers who have already dug their own graves, visits a cryonics facility in Michigan, which is just outside of Detroit. And she goes for a late night Chinese with a homicide detective and questions a man whose job it is to make crime scenes disappear. She asks questions like, why would somebody choose this kind of life? Does it change you as a person? And are we missing something vital by letting death remain hidden? And it kind of just looks at the psychology of Western death and how we deal with it. A lot of the stories take place in England. She talks to a which isn't mentioned in the I did mention already, but she talks to a midwife whose job it is to help people give birth to who's had miscarriages. So she's like a grief midwife, which that was a really interesting chapter. That was fascinating to me because it's not something that's really common. So it's a very serious book. It's a very hard book to read at times because she does get very graphic with the details. So I would definitely recommend, if you're squeamish at all, you probably don't want to read this book. But I think it's just such a fascinating look at how death is treated in our culture. And I really recommend, if you want to look at other cultures and how they look at death, to read the Caitlin Doty book about, I can't remember the title, but I think it's From Here to Eternity. I think that's the title. But just getting this perspective is super interesting and definitely had me asking questions about what I plan on doing with, because she talks to people who work at the the Mayo Hospital or mortuary and Minnesota, and talks a lot about how people were, give their bodies to science and stuff like that. So yeah, super interesting. Not for everybody, definitely not. But if you like reading these type of books, I would recommend this one for you because it's super, super interesting. And yeah, I can't say that I enjoyed it because that would be really weird, but I liked reading it.
Yeah, it seems like it's a book that would really kind of stay with you for a while after you finished it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
I'll read
All
it.
right,
Definitely.
Thank you, Kristen. All right, Chris, what is your last book for the day?
So before I talk about my last book, I just want to mention real quickly, I think Nancy and I definitely know Sherry read The House in the Cerulean Sea.
Mhm.
And I just want to also say, wow, that book is a 5-star book and everybody
good.
should read it. It's so good. So, but my third book that I want to talk about is Berry Song by Michaela Good. It is Michaela Good's first self-authored picture book, and it received the Caldecott Honor Book on January 31st. She also received the Caldecott Medal last year for her illustrations. So this is an honor book for the illustrations, and I will say it is gorgeously illustrated. The cover really doesn't do it justice. You open those pages and oh, so much goodness. So I think that this book could be used for several themes: Earth Day, Indigenous people, gardening and harvest, or intergenerational. So if there are any teachers out there listening, consider this book for those topics. Those subjects are covered in this little picture book. So it's the story of a young girl and her grandmother. They live on an island at the edge of the sea, I believe up in Alaska. And they spend their time learning about Mother Earth's gifts. And all the gifts that are presented through the 4 seasons. As the reader, we also get to learn about many kinds of berries, thus the title, Berry Song. So this book mentions all kinds of berries I've never heard of. The salmonberry, the cloudberry, the nagoonberry, the snowberry, and the crowberry. So it's just a little 32-page book. Great to share with young people, and at the last 2 pages gives you some more detailed information about each of the berries and some of the different things that happen during the seasons up near their island. So great book. Give it a read.
It seems like a nice, relaxing, calming book to end all of the after all the books we've talked about so far. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us and watching and leaving your comments and questions later and letting us know what you're reading. Thanks to the 4 of you for joining me here today. I appreciate it. Any comments before we go? Anyone want to say anything?
I just would like to say I've been super thrilled to have Kristen on our panel for all this time, and I'm going to miss her input and her book selections when she's gone.
Yeah, so I'm leaving GDL. I will be going to Flint Public Library, so please stop and see me over there if you're in the area.
Congratulations.
Right nearby, you'll still be able to see Kristen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for all your work and all your contributions, Kristen.
Thank you. I really enjoy this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you to everyone again for watching, and we'll be back next month in March for more. Take care.